Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Dr. Mark, you had your hair cut.
I got it all cut.
How do you like it?
I'm adjusting. I like it. I've always gone from longer to shorter, and it was
I've been tempted so many times.
I figure it always grows back. So
That's exactly. I like it though.
Thank
Two
you.
things. Dr. Marvel cannot make it today.
Okay.
He had another appointment. And the other thing before we really go out public, I don't know why, because you people are so busy, why you couldn't move it back to once a month now.
What are we talking about?
Are you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I think we can put a larger period here. We'll talk with yeah.
We are busy, aren't we?
Really? You think? I don't know. I don't know. Sue Ann looks like she's on vacation.
The virtual background does a whole lot to make you. I do it so you don't have to see all the stacks of paper behind me.
That's Lake Ossipee in New Hampshire.
So do you mentally just float there or what?
It's from my cousin's porch.
Well, okay.
We could meet there,
It's a beautiful view.
isn't it?
Yeah, it's lovely. You have visitation rights?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Anytime.
So Susan, how are you doing? Keeping yourself busy?
Who, me?
Yeah, you.
Absolutely. I
Okay.
stay busy.
Okay.
Those 3 grandchildren of mine keep me hopping.
How old are they?
How old are they?
Yeah.
The twins are 15 and a half,
Okay.
and then my little grandson is 9.
Okay. Well, the twins must be thinking about cars at this point.
Well, they are, but they're just the little girl. The twin isn't the girl, but boy, the boy is.
Okay.
You didn't hear anything about the boat parade, did you?
We're talking to them.
Sorry.
Yeah, I talked to Chuck Ward last week. He's trying to get it organized. They'd like to go forward with it. But they, the Rotary Club runs that now. So he's been meeting with the Overfalls, and he talked to the chamber about, because the chamber used to sponsor it in conjunction with the Overfalls, and the Overfalls still is involved because in the past they've held the award ceremony on the Overfalls, and the Overfalls has sponsored the awards actually, and so Chuck is he's the new president of the Rotary, and kind of was behind because we didn't have it last year. He didn't really, he wasn't that involved 2 years ago. So it's a real steep learning curve for him, and working on it. But,
I just always have a good time having a party on my dock.
so. But they're trying to get it organized. It'll be interesting to see. It's it's one of the things that we canceled last year only because of the number of people on the shore, not
Absolutely.
the people
And
on the
you
boats
should've.
are all related, and so.
Yeah.
But
And I was so glad to see Overfalls is open.
going to open, yeah.
Yeah, I saw their sign yesterday when I went by there.
Yeah. They're having their big opening event next Friday,
Good.
but it's not going to be out of the Verdon Center. It's going to be the Maritime Hall of Fame thing down at the Overfalls.
Good. So you can be outside.
Yeah, they're planning for 200. I just had an email from Michael Safina, who's their president. He said they're planning for 250. They expect about 150 people to attend.
Good.
Hey, Bob, how are you?
I'm doing great. How's everyone doing?
Good, thank you.
Good.
So you split your graduation into 2 increments, huh?
That's where it is right now. We're with some of the more recent updates, we're considering having one based on X amount of tickets, 5 tickets per graduate. So
Okay,
yeah, with probably this week, we're going to kind of finalize things and get something out to make that decision. We really wanted to do it in one, but realized we couldn't. But with some of the more recent updates,
right.
seeing the feasibility of actually having it in one and
Good.
5 ticket situation. I think the students would rather have one. The families would probably rather have one as well.
Sure. I think parents would too.
Yeah.
Yeah. How large is the graduating class?
Almost 400 students.
So this will not be the largest you've had.
It won't be the largest, but we're going to have the largest in a few years. I believe our freshman class is the largest freshman class we ever had. So which is
Okay.
500. So
Wow, 500.
close to it. I mean,
Wow.
I'm not sure what the graduates will be at that point, but
Sure.
yeah, it's definitely a good time for the addition to the high school to be completed for next fall. And this year with COVID not having as many students in the building kind of saved us this year in one way, just having more space with fewer students, especially with the bigger freshman class.
Well, probably the COVID has helped your construction move along a little more quickly in some ways because
Some
you
ways,
have
yes.
not
Other
having-
ways,
not having to work around buses
Materials.
and schools or kids and cars.
Yeah, we've had some materials that haven't arrived as they should have just because of
Oh,
COVID
yeah.
and transportation and getting things here and orders. And luckily, we were well ahead of schedule with the high school project. So even with all the delays, we'll be fine.
It's looking good.
Thanks. Yes. Looks really nice inside. And look forward to having you and others kind of walking through. But we kind of spent. There's a section that's a 2-story section that you can kind of see floor to the second floor. You've probably seen the renderings. We have sort of some really cool photos from different historic, and kind of, different buildings and, things throughout the district from Dewey Beach to Milton to Lewes. And so it's really nice. It's very large.
Okay. Oh, we cannot see you.
So-
Excuse me, Bob, Paul's on the other line, so he's trying to get in.
Oh, I got him. Hold on. Sorry.
Anne Marie's found you. She's going to bring you up. Okay. There you are.
Oh, and Cheryl as well. Let me bring Cheryl over.
Okay, so we have Cheryl and you, and Anne Marie just brought both of you in. You need to click to log in.
Okay, there we
Click on
go.
your Video.
Okay, there we go. I was having problems on my computer.
There you are. Okay.
Well, go
Welcome,
ahead.
Paul. Welcome, Cheryl. Bob, sorry I cut you off there. I'm sorry.
No problem. Don't mind at all.
I didn't mean to do that. But we needed to get Paul and Cheryl onto the
No
screen.
problem. I'm not easily offended.
Okay.
I'm just thrilled that it was an IT problem and it wasn't my fault. It usually is something I did wrong.
Welcome. We all have those issues. Anyway.
Right. So David Tam is going to join us, I guess.
If
He
you
was scheduled to
can.
be 8:30 or 9:30.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's a little bit after that, so we can go ahead and get started.
Okay.
So I guess there's a minutes from the, by the way, Jim Marvel contacted me and said he wasn't able to come today. So there's minutes from the April meeting that we need to review and hopefully approve. We have a motion to approve those.
I'll move to approve them.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Great, there's a motion, a second. Is there any discussion? Great. Okay, so those are approved. It's the housekeeping, that's perfect. I think with regards to COVID, I think, Bob, you were correct in our last meeting when you suggested that our April numbers may have been related to spring break. When you look at the numbers in the county through May, they have settled down and have been consistent after that spike that we saw in the middle of May. So we're still seeing COVID. It's not from a hospitalization standpoint, the hospitalization numbers have settled down to a relatively low number. The better news with that is that the number of people that are critically ill with COVID continues to be really small. So we're kind of headed in the correct direction. Our numbers have been actually very stable for the last several weeks with that. If you look at the number of positive cases, that number is just under 5% in the county now. Although interestingly enough, yes, if you look at yesterday's individual number, that number was over 9, now over 9%. But again, I've always cautioned to kind of, yeah, it's kind of like the stock market. You have to look at it over a broader period of time than individual bullet points. So sort of moving in the right direction. I also looked at some of our vaccination rates in the county. So it's interesting that if you take the population in the county and the number of people that are vaccinated, it winds up being 41% of the county is fully vaccinated. But when they're reporting a number, and they were reporting a number of 50%. And it took me a while to realize that they're actually only reporting the number of eligible people, which means that, if you're under 16 at this point, until recently, you weren't eligible and you were included in the total population number. So if you look at the number of people that in the county that are eligible for the vaccine, it's we have 50% of full immunization. If you look at the total number of people in the county, it's 41%. So, a decent number, but certainly not anywhere, regardless of who you believe with regards to herd immunity, 50% isn't the number. It certainly needs to be higher than that. Hopefully it'll continue to move in the right direction. The good news is within the county, if you look at the number of people over 65 that are vaccinated, that number is 85% or 84 point something percent. And the number of people between 50 and 64, that number is 50%. So our most at-risk population is doing a reasonable job of getting vaccinated, which is good. So that's kind of where we're at with regards to vaccinations. Ted, do you want to comment about the couple events that we have in the town where vaccination will be available?
Sure, I do. And I also wanted to share a couple comments from the governor's call with Anne Marie and I participated on earlier in the week. And that is that he's mentioned that Sussex County has the highest vaccination rate in the state, which is good.
Oh, good.
And he also, but the issue remains more with the minority community and over in the Georgetown area and how to reach those people. So that dovetails nicely with the fact that we are moving ahead with our summer concert series, and the chamber is moving ahead with the garden tour in June, on the 19th of June. And DPH in both cases has already given their approval to those plans, but they've also reached out saying that they would like to set up vaccination tables at those events. So DPH is doing a lot to reach the community at social situations where they hadn't done that in the past. So I think that anybody who hasn't gotten it, who comes to those events, if they choose to get the vaccination, they will be able to get it on those days. The summer concert series runs on Tuesdays for several weeks, so throughout the summer. So that will be yet another opportunity. And I think all of that is very, very positive. The governor was very encouraging. He said exactly what you were saying. And in terms of, he did mention one other factor that I think is very positive, that the statewide hospitalizations were under 100. And that's a very positive number. It says something not only about the number of people who are sick, but how many of them are being managed without requiring hospitalization. That's very good news. So thanks, Paul.
Mayor, can I just add one of the things Janet and I talked about yesterday? There was the Funsters apparently may end up playing our concert series, and Janet had some reservations because they have such a big draw. And what we talked about was, because people may be closer than 3 feet, we may require masks for that event, or do the circle, have something to manage how the crowd interacts, but make sure that that's one of the events where we could have DPH there. Because if something's going to have a big draw, may as well try to use that to get the vaccine out.
Yeah, it's interesting, although I think that the demographic for the concert series are likely the people that are most likely to be vaccinated.
I think you're right.
But yeah, that's
Hey.
No, I'm just talking about the demographic of who lives in our town. I bet you, I couldn't find this by zip code. I probably could have if I looked harder, but the vaccination rates for the 19958 zip code, I'm sure, are much higher than the 50% that are reported.
Right. I think Hockessin and the 19958 zip codes are the two highest zip code vaccination areas in the state.
Right. Yeah, that's great news.
Yeah.
So hopefully we're moving in the correct direction.
Well, you can kind of feel it in the community. People are feeling more comfortable moving around. You see people getting out, and the fact that the governor's made all the changes that he has about restaurant occupancy and things that go into effect next Friday is very encouraging. People are beginning to sense that life is returning to some sense of normalcy. So it's good.
Yeah. So I think the big topic that we've been waiting to talk about for months is the mask requirement for the town.
Right.
So as you know, currently we require a mask if you're in public in town outside.
Right.
So I had spoken to the mayor about this a few days ago, just a clarification. We don't have any requirements with regards to being inside buildings. That's a state requirement that has nothing to do with us. So, and I think Ted, if I understand it correctly, the council who ultimately makes a decision would just like a recommendation from this committee.
Exactly. And the council will have it's on the agenda for Monday night's discussion because it was a council action that we required the mask bearing in downtown. So we will take it up on Monday night, but a recommendation from this committee would be helpful. We'll also note that I spoke to Betsy Reamer yesterday, and the chamber board met on Tuesday evening, and they voted to recommend that the city follow the state guidelines and go ahead and remove the mask wearing a requirement from the downtown district. So that was a recommendation from the chamber board of directors. So,
yeah, I think from a science standpoint, we have always understood from the early days of COVID that natural air was probably the best antiseptic, if you will, that whether the virus is spread from droplet, which is heavier, or aerosolized, which is lighter and can stay around more, natural airflow pushes it away from people into the ground very quickly. There's actually some great videos that were done that you could find on YouTube that actually, as disgusting as it is, they have people sneezing on each other, and and they're using black lights to highlight the particles, and they demonstrate what it looks like if you're in a structure that has conditioned air, then what it looks like even if you open a window, how dramatically different it is, and certainly outside. And the CDC changed their recommendations recently, so they agree that vaccinated people outside are very low risk and don't need to wear masks. I think that so I'll say that, and then I'll ask anybody else to have any comments about it.
Mayor, you said that this is going to be kind of discussed in next week's meeting, I guess?
on Monday evening, yes.
Monday evening, as far as outside in the city of Lewis,
Right.
were those vaccinated or not?
Regardless, I mean, obviously, we're not telling people not to wear a mask.
Right.
We're saying there's no requirement to wear a mask.
Okay.
I mean, anybody who feels vulnerable or uncomfortable could certainly continue to wear a mask, and should probably if they have flu-like symptoms or what they, first of all, they shouldn't be out, but if they're just uncomfortable, that would be a discussion point.
Anybody
I
else?
rode up 2nd Street Monday and
Yeah.
Front Street, and I saw probably 50 people. 3 people had a mask on.
Mhm.
And one group had probably 10 or 12 children. So we know they're not vaccinated, and none had masks on.
Well, there is a whole thing about mask fatigue that is very real.
Mhm.
So, okay.
So, so are we just talking about outside? We're not talking about in the shops themselves?
The governor's
Correct.
order the governor's order still requires mask wearing in stores,
Okay,
in businesses.
Mhm.
gotcha. Okay,
Or mask wearing anytime socially you're feeling like you're in a tight group of people.
gotcha. Okay.
I think mask wearing is going to become a clothing accessory.
Yes.
Like, like we've all learned how to carry a cell phone. I think we're all going to learn how to carry a mask going
Yeah.
forward.
Yes. Yes, my wallet sits in my left back pocket and my mask sits in my right back pocket now as I walk around.
Yeah. I have a box of them in my car, so I'm never without, it's great.
Yes.
So the recommendation, I guess, that I would like to have from the committee and see if people are okay with the language is that the Board of Health Committee would recommend to the council to consider removing the mandatory mask requirement. However, suggesting that people that are unvaccinated or otherwise at risk continue to wear a mask. And that's an optional, that's a recommendation, not a requirement.
Dr.
I
Cowan,
think that makes sense.
when the
Yes.
motion is made, can you, even though, even though it's already in the ordinance, if the motion could just clarify in outdoor areas, public outdoor areas, just so that there's not any confusion that indoor is still required.
Yes, yes.
Thanks.
Could add that, that'd be great. And I guess I'm not an expert on Robert's Rules of Order, but I think as the chairperson of the committee, I'm not supposed to make a motion.
Correct.
So,
But we need, somebody could make a motion just saying that they would move, but as Dr. Cowan had stated, that we take that motion.
Okay.
I approve.
Question first.
Sure.
oh, yes, Bob.
I guess my question involves, should there be any type of language to kind of single out events within the city, or, those kind of, is that unnecessary? Or events, the same rules for events where you have a few 100 people or so gathering for a concert? Is it the same type of thing as just walking on the street? I know that we have different rules for large gatherings, they're called, and we have to apply to DPH for certain approvals for different events we have for large, they're considered large gatherings. I'm not sure if that means more than 150 or more than 250, I believe. I don't know, maybe it's not necessary, but just wouldn't want, if our intentions are that's fine. I just want to make sure we kind of clarify what our intentions are for events or just streets or whatever, it doesn't matter.
If we modified the motion to we follow the state guidelines, they would require, that would put in effect the 250 requiring approval of DPH.
Good.
I'll
And
second it.
I think what we would do is if we do have some sort of an outdoor event where we expect the distancing not to be able to be achieved and we believe masks will be required, we would just need to make it very clear when we put out information on the event.
Yeah.
And are we addressing the beach, or is this just in town?
Well, it would be for the public outdoor areas, which is what the ordinance addresses now. And
Okay,
ordinance specifically says the beach parking lots and
okay,
the downtown area and the beach restrooms, but the beach restrooms are indoors. So, so
right.
it's the public outdoor areas.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
So,
Okay, so we had,
Motion and a second, I believe, too. I think Susan seconded the motion.
okay,
okay.
so, Emery, do you have that written down or something close to that?
I guess the question is, does Sue Ann have something close to that written down?
Okay,
You're
You're
muted,
muted,
Sue Ann.
Suzanne.
You'll have to restate it.
that means no, okay.
You want me to try to restate it?
All I have is Board of Health recommendation to the mayor and city council, consider removing mandatory mask requirement, particularly if you're unvaccinated or at risk, it can be your decision to wear a mask. It's not a requirement.
Okay, so here's the language I would recommend. Is that okay, Dr. Cowan, if I
Yeah.
provide it? That if somebody could make a motion that the Board of Health recommend that mayor and city council consider removing the mask mandate for outdoor public spaces.
Hang on. Mandate. For what? Outdoor public?
Outdoor public spaces,
Okay,
while continuing to encourage mask use outdoors for people who are unvaccinated. So encourage, is that okay?
Yes.
And to follow the governor's or the state's guidance for outdoor events.
That was it.
okay.
Did I capture that, Dr. Cowan?
Yes, you did. It's something that's more eloquent when they read Monday night.
So Susan, I think you had a motion and you approved, you raised your hand.
Yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
and do we have a second?
Right. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any additional discussion? Okay, all in favor
Aye.
and opposed? Perfect. Okay, we had, I'm blanking on this, we had 3 topics and I'm blank. I know that Nick Carter had asked to join us, but he's not on the line. It doesn't appear as though he's on the line.
He's in the attendees. We can bring him up.
What's that?
He's on the attendee list and Anne Marie can bring him up.
Okay,
Okay.
sure.
He should be able to unmute and turn on his camera now.
So just for clarification, so is the meeting entirely open to the public?
Yep.
Okay,
We have 7 attendees. And while we're talking about that, we have one person who's logged. We like to keep record of who's attending. We have one person who's just logged in with a phone number. If they would type in their name, the phone number 202-262-8441. If you type in your name so we'd have record of who's attending, it would be very helpful. Thank you. Hello, Nick.
Hello.
Nick.
Mayor, for the record, that is actually Councilman-elect Saliba.
Okay, great. Thank you. Terrific. Okay.
Great. So Nick, thank you for reaching out to me, and I apologize that we couldn't get you on the agenda for April. So, but I'll give you the floor if you'd like to talk about your concerns.
Yeah, I hope everybody had a chance to read the email and the concerns that my wife and I have expressed. I don't know if everybody has a copy of that.
I do
Yeah,
not.
circulated.
Does everybody have a copy of that, and have they had a chance to read it?
I have, yes.
Yep.
So this is, this happened in July 4th week. Well, first of all, I grew up on Lewes Beach and still own the house that I grew up in on the beach. And obviously we spent every summer there as a kid, but July week of 2019, we were at the beach for a week. And in my email, I explained there was a large family of visitors, probably 30 people that were sitting no less than 10 feet away from us. And we experienced 3 different situations, as is spelled out in my email, where the little boy said to his father, said, "Daddy, I've got to poop." So he said, "I pooped my pants." So the father walks the little boy down to the bay, waist deep water, washes him out. And within 10 minutes, the little girl in this group of people sitting next to us says, Mommy, I have to poop." And the mother says, "Well, here, honey, I'll just dig a hole in the sand and you can go right here." So at the end of the day, I was down on the water's edge, and I, pardon my French, but there were literally turds floating right in the shoreline. and I consider this fecal contamination of Lewes Beach. And, you know, just to be perfectly blunt. I don't want to just create a problem. I'd rather come up with some solutions on how to solve the problem. But what we're seeing is only going to get worse. There's unlimited free parking on Lewes Beach right now, and the people have no place to go to the bathroom. The only bathroom facilities are at the end of Savannah Road at the public beach and down at the Roosevelt Inlet. But between those two locations, there are no public facilities for people to go to the bathroom. And they do not get in their cars to drive to the bathroom because then they would lose their free parking space. So they go where they can, in the bay, on the beach, in the dune, private property, public property. And for me, it's not acceptable. And I believe it is a serious health hazard and a health issue. The other thing is that the beach parking committee this year, I think I expressed 2 or 3 years ago, nothing was done. This year, nothing again was done, except there were 2 policemen that were hired. So one of the solutions to this problem, I think, is permit parking. And there's another couple of solutions to it, adding porta-johns. Now, that's not really a popular thing for a lot of people on Lewes Beach, but we were in Oxford, Maryland, and there's a picture in the email that I sent of a facility in Oxford, Maryland, which is a beautiful town, and they have no public restrooms. So they put these porta-johns, but then they enclose them in what looks like a very attractive outhouse type building. We have a local company here in Lewes called Clean Delaware. They service porta-johns every day. And so the question, of course, is where do you put them? And, you know, do the people that live on Lewes Beach want a porta-john next to their house? That's a problem. But I think we have to do something. Something has to be done. We can't continue to ignore it. So and I don't mean to pick on a city council, but, you know, as I went through the city code, I come across the enumeration of powers, section 29. And paragraph 2 and paragraph 11 both say that the code, and I believe the oath of the city council persons, says that they are to provide for and preserve the health, peace, safety, cleanliness, and good order of the city and its inhabitants. Paragraph 11 says to define, prevent, abate, or remove nuisances, obstructions, or any condition detrimental to the public safety, health, or welfare. So by ignoring this, I'm going to say it again, fecal contamination of Lewes Beach, I think they're violating their oath of office. And that's my humble opinion. There is an ordinance on Lewes Beach about dogs. And the ordinance is Article 88-9, restrictions. And it specifically says, and it's in the copy of the email, that the owner or person in control of such dog shall keep the dog under leash and shall carry and use a bag or other device to pick up and remove from the beach any excrement that said dog shall drop. It goes on to say the violations and penalties of this ordinance include first time offense, a fine of not less than $25 and no more than $200, and imprisonment of a term of not less than 10 days or more than 30 days. That's just for the first offense. The second offense, of course, the numbers and the jail time go up. There are no ordinances for human beings defecating on Lewes Beach, but there are for dogs. Now, I think in Rehoboth, if I'm not mistaken, they do have an ordinance in the town of Rehoboth against public urination and public defecation. And I haven't researched that as far as the city code is concerned, but I do know that there are signs on Lewes Beach and there is an ordinance against dogs and there should be one against humans. I don't know what else to say or to do about this, but I believe something has to be done. We can't just keep pushing this down the road and ignoring it. In fact, by ignoring this problem, we're condoning the problem.
Do we have an ordinance with regards to public indecency?
We do. I just texted the chief to see if he could join because I don't see that he's on the meeting. I do know that after we received a lot of feedback from the community about people publicly urinating and defecating, we did actually, I think it was 2019, because I think it was pre-pandemic.
Right.
Our officers actually did make an arrest, and so I know that there is something that allows us now, whether we have, whether they're using something broader or whether we need to have something more specific on those matters, we could certainly look at. But I think, I know that they have cited people for those types of offenses. I think the biggest challenge is that the likelihood of the officer being present when that behavior is happening is, pretty unlikely. I mean, I know that people don't pick up after their dogs very frequently, and I doubt that we have very many arrests on that. So part of it is, even if we have something on the books, are we able to have the staffing to support the enforcement that needs to go with it?
So let me go on, because I think the enforcement is a bigger problem. I mean, last year, or actually 2019, there were, as a result of the beach parking committee, they decided to increase the beach patrols on an ATV vehicle.
That's correct.
But the problem on Lewes Beach is that they can't drive an ATV vehicle down the beach. There's just too many people on the beach. And the other question is, even if they caught somebody going to the bathroom, what are they going to do? Are they going to fine them? Or are they going to arrest them? I think the issue is to provide facilities somewhere on Lewes Beach between Roosevelt and Savannah Road. There has to be some place for these people to go to the bathroom. A couple other solutions might be the permit parking, and whether it's permit parking, which it should be for a fee, then that might limit the people that go to the beach. There could be a time limit on the permit itself. It could be a two-hour limit, could be a 3-hour limit. That way it gives people a chance to go to the bathroom. So I think there's something has to be done. The Cape Henlopen State Park, at certain times of the day during the summer, they close the park. They close it because they have done an extensive carrying capacity study of the beach at Cape Henlopen State Park. We haven't done that since 2010. And there are too many people on Lewes Beach. It is a free-for-all. I'm sorry to say, but it is. It's free, open parking anywhere you can park your car. And this is another way to control the fecal contamination, the all-day visitors who have no place to go to the bathroom.
Nick, thank you very much for your comments. And you and I have discussed this in the past, and I have done some outreach to people regarding the possibility of placements of porta potties, similar to what you show in your information. There's been great resistance to anybody, as you alluded to, being willing to have one of those even close to their home. Not that it would be right out there on their property. So there's been a lot of pushback in terms of that. That's something we have to overcome. And I agree with you that we need to address this. The issue becomes one of doing that. In terms of the permit parking, the one thing that did come out of the beach committee this year was that Anne Marie and others are working on a permit system, which we hope that will be in place for next season, the 21-22 season. As you know, there's a lot of nuances to developing a permit system, and Anne Marie can better speak as to where they are in terms of that. But there are lots of issues related to how do we provide for people who live on the beach? Do they get a permit unlike what was going on in Rehoboth? And where do we sell them? How do we make them available? For what duration are they available for? In multiple days? Are they available for the season? I don't need to go on with all of that. The one thing that,
Delineating parking is also a part of that.
right. And the other thing is that in part, last year, in summer of 20, the parking situation was exacerbated by the fact that the state park limited their capacity to 60% of their available spaces. We have been in contact with Ray Bivens from the state park regarding what they are doing this year. State park has not yet issued a decision on as to whether they're going to allow full capacity. However, as recently as last week, I spoke to Ray and he said that they are allowing their campground to go to 100% capacity, and the nature center is moving to be back open. So the anticipation is that the state park will go back to 100% for their capacity, although they haven't announced that yet. So we still need to get an answer from state parks as to what they're going to do. That will help somewhat, but it will not eliminate the problem. You're raising a very valid point, one that we need to address.
One thing, let me go back, Mayor, and just say something about the placement of these porta-johns. There are 20 streets
Right.
that go to the beach. These are public access streets.
Right.
So if you live on one of those public access streets and you're on the beach, you probably would not want a porta-john next to you. So there's 2 people on both sides of each street. That's 40 people.
Right.
But there are, I think, 800, 600, 700, 800 people or owners of property on Lewes Beach. So I personally would pay for one of the structures. I'm going to say that on record right now, that I would pay for one of the structures. Where we put it, I don't know. I know there's a lot of space at the corners of California and Maine on Cedar Street, the corners of the Children's Beach House property, that really wouldn't impact the property owner except people across the street or next door. So there's 2 locations there on both corners of Cedar Street.
And I've had just to interrupt you, but I have had conversation with the Children's Beach House. They were not at all receptive to the idea.
I'm sure that nobody that lives on one of those 20 streets would be receptive to it. I don't believe. But again, you're talking 40 people.
Right.
You have 40 people and there's 800 people on Lewes Beach. So I don't think that 40 people should control the other 800. But
okay.
That's a dilemma. But at the same time, some of these areas, specifically, I know on Indiana Street, it's marked off as private driveway. So I don't know if there are actually 20 locations, or do you go back on the paper streets? I don't know.
Well, that was another topic. At one time, we talked about doing some on paper streets, and you'll recall that was another issue that was quite difficult.
Yes,
I see that Lori has her hand up. Maybe Lori, since you're right there, you want to speak?
Yeah,
Okay.
Lori's right here.
I don't know, because I've never done one of these meetings with you guys. So Nan Marie and I worked together at DENREC for many years, and I echo everything that my husband just stated. I witnessed all of this stuff that he talked about a couple of years ago. It's not just one incident, it's many incidents. It is, I think, very fixable. We just discussed many ways it would be fixable. And if we are truly a public beach, we need to be providing public facilities, period. And if we need to establish a carrying capacity, which is exactly what we did when I worked at DENREC for Delaware State Parks, it is a mathematical equation. It's an exact science, and then you can add in factors. And Ray and I talk about this, just like you have, Mayor. And it is not something out of the realm of a smaller group of people to figure out. So I just wanted to, I don't think officers enforcing people not having bathrooms is the answer. Although I support the police, I think they have a lot more important things to do than looking for people digging holes to go to the bathroom. So when somebody said that earlier about enforcement, I think that was Anne Marie. I'm sorry, Anne Marie, I don't think that's the answer. I think the answer is providing facilities. We all would much rather use a restroom, whether it be a porta-john or a real restroom, than we would try to find a hole. Lastly, our home, which this is immaterial, the location, but if you were to drive down Bay Avenue, right in front of Roland Marshall's house, right next to Joe Shell's house and Roland Marshall's house, there was a telephone pole. And if you looked at it, but nobody would look at it unless you live right there, in great big letters, spray painted, it had LBC. And I never quite knew what that stood for. Do any of you know what that stands for? Because we figured it out. It is the Google Earth placement of Lewes Beach Central. So, okay, Nick, you can talk about that. But the point is that this area of Lewes Beach, where you turn on Indiana, is where a lot of the people were being directed. So Nick apparently has just told me he had it moved or something, but I think that's another issue with, you know, with all of the technology we have. Here we have Google Earth and somebody can't get into the state park. So guess what they do? They go, well, let's go to Lewes Beach. And so with their little map, it directed them right to this particular area, right in smack in the middle, the furthest distance from any Porta-John. So
Okay. Thank you, Lori.
Yeah, let me just jump in on that because when that was revealed to me, I contacted Google more than once, probably 3 times. I said, look, you have the Lewes Beach location on Google Map at Indiana. I said, there are no facilities there. I said, the people that are coming to Lewes Beach and they've never been here, they just want to go to the beach, they end up on Indiana Avenue between Joe Shell and Roland Marshall's house. And they would pull up and unload and go to the beach. That's where this group came from when Laura and I were on the beach in July of 19. So after multiple contacts with Google, I believe they've moved the location now to Savannah Road where the public facilities are. So I tried to fix that and I think I did, but I'm not sure.
Thank you. That's the first I've heard of it, Nick. I was unaware of that.
Yeah, no, that's where they would come. And we checked. In fact, that came from TR Marshall. And one last thing is that I know there was another ordinance that was presented from DelDOT and DelDOT, and I don't know, Mayor, I think the city might have voted against it, but there was an ordinance presented for restrictive parking on Cape Henlopen Drive in front of Cape Shores outside of the Cape Henlopen State Park.
There was.
And I think what was happening, if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but that when the park was full, and even when they go to 100 capacity, they're still going to close the park because they'll turn people away in the summertime. They wanted to restrict parking on Cape Henlopen Drive to protect the pedestrians and the cyclists. But if that were to take place, if they're restricting parking on Cape Henlopen Drive, then those visitors who've come for the day to go to the beach that can't get in are looking for another place to go. So where do they go? They go down to the public beach, it's full. So they go down to Lewes Beach and find a free parking place.
Yeah.
And again, lastly, I would say if DelDOT is going to restrict parking on Cape Henlopen Drive, they probably should do the same thing on Cedar Street. And I'm about talked out right now. So I have to be quiet.
Thank you. Well, certainly we are aware of the situation. I think that we will consider this and how do we go forward. The issue is locating the issue initially is where can we locate these possible porta potties and figuring out how to get that done, because it's not only locating them so that people aren't offended by them, or that they're accepting of them, but it's also a matter of having located so that the sanitation company is going to clean them or going to pump them out has access. So putting them directly on the beach is probably not your suggestion about, that's not an option.
They have to be close to Bay Avenue.
Exactly. Either Bay Avenue or Cedar Street.
Yeah, Bay would be preferable, I think. But like I said, you've got 40 people that would probably object to it.
Well, I think if they're back off Cedar Street where the paper streets are, it's not going to help the issue of the family who the kid has to go, because they're not going to go all the way up.
They have to go.
It's too late.
They have to go. It's the closer the better.
Right. I mean, there are some options here that we can consider. So.
Okay, well, thank you for the time. I really appreciate it, but it is a very serious concern. you know, having grown up on Lewes Beach, we didn't even go to the beach last summer because of it. And we're not going to go this summer either. And that's, for me, it's really sad.
Yeah.
Very sad. So I just think, and I'm not here to complain. I'm here to try to at least present some solutions. I think there are solutions. We can't just continue to ignore it. We can't. We have to.
I think there's a couple of solutions that can be seriously looked at and implemented.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Again, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you bringing it up, Nick. Thank you.
Excuse me, Mayor, I have a question. You're talking about more than one location of porta potties, aren't you?
I think you have to.
You
Yeah.
have to, because
Yeah, you
one is
can't
not
just do
gonna.
No.
When you
it's a
have
long-
children,
It's a long way from,
yes, it
from
is.
Beach 1 to Roosevelt Inlet.
Mhm.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
well, good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think that's the last,
It is.
agenda on the topic. So, Mayor, do you want to continue to meet every 3 weeks? Do you want to move it to 4 weeks since with the mask is no longer an issue?
I think we can move it to 4, Paul. I
Okay.
think,
I think so.
Is there a need for us to have the meeting the week before, to try to have the week before you have council meetings every month, is that correct?
correct. I think that would be that would be useful. Our
Yeah.
next council meeting will put us in June. If we did it the week before, we'd be looking at very short time, actually, because our next council meeting will be on the 14th of June. So we need to meet like the 10th or 11th of June, which is just shy of 4 weeks.
Okay. Yeah, so I could meet on the Tuesday of that week. That
Okay.
work in people's schedule, the 8th.
I think it'll work for me. I don't know, Susan. how does
Let
it
me
work?
look at my calendar.
Anne Marie, do we have anything on the calendar?
Nothing I see, but let me check one more location. Nope.
Bob, how does that fit with your graduation?
If you don't mind listening to me practice my graduation speech for everybody during the meeting.
No, I definitely want to hear it.
Honored.
No, it works. I'm
I
not
will
scheduled
not
to
be
open that
here,
day.
but that's okay.
Susan, you said that you won't be here, Jim won't be
I-
here?
Right, I won't be
Okay.
here June the 8th. I'm going away for a few days and I'll be back the evening of June 8th. But that's okay, go ahead.
Well, we need to have a quorum. So, Paul, does the 9th or the 10th work for you at all?
I could do the 9th, yes.
How about that, Susan?
The 9th I can do. Mhm.
What
What
time?
time of the day?
Whatever suits you guys.
Okay, what's best for you, Paul?
How, is 11 o'clock okay?
Mhm.
Works for me.
Yes.
Okay,
That's June 11th, June 9th, you said?
Correct.
Yes.
actually, it's gonna be a little, I need to be a little later than that, because then I have a 9 o'clock that's gonna run about, if we could do it 11:30, would that work?
11:30, that's 11:30 is fine.
Okay,
11:30?
yeah,
Okay.
I should be able to make that. We're having two big exercises on the 7th and the 8th. And so I should be able to make that on the 9th.
okay, great. You know if Dr. Marvel will be around, Susan?
I don't know. I'll text him as soon as our meeting's over and I'll tell him when it is.
Okay, great. And that works for you, Bob, is that right?
It does, yes.
Okay, great.
All right, great. Everyone, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Paul.
you.
2 weeks.
Thank
Yep.
Have a
Good
great
day.
week, guys.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye-bye.